All right. Well, I think that is probably a good place to get started now. It looks like most of the people who are signed up are rolling in now. Um, a lot of you may already know that this is Brett's second presentation with us. His first one will be available through a recording in the future if it's not already on our YouTube page now. And you'll be able to log in and see that. So I gave a full bio on Brett last time. I won't repeat the full bio. You can go back to that one and watch his presentation and his bio on that one too. It's a great presentation. It covers what operating systems are, how they apply. One of the cool things that I learned in that particular webinar was that we're all using operating systems. We just have in a non-functional operating system, and we don't really know that it's called an operating system. So that was kind of a neat thing to go through. So check that one out if you didn't get to attend to that one. If you have any trouble finding it, let me know or let Dan know, and we'll get you a copy of it. But as far as Brett goes, Brett grew up in Alabama, but after 30 years moved to Atlanta. He now lives there with his puppy, as you know, and dogs and the rest of his family. He enjoys hiking and cooking. He even does a little bit of mountain bike racing, which is a pretty cool story to talk to him about sometime. He's been the CFO of a billion-dollar insurance company. He ended up reading Traction a little ways into his career, and it changed the trajectory of where he was going. And now he is an EOS certified implementer as of 2015, and really enjoys bringing these same ideas to companies all over the country so that they can reach their goals and enjoy their journey. And if you want to hear his whole backstory, then you can go listen to the first webinar. But from there, Brett, I will let you take it.
All right. Well, thank you, Josh. Thank you all of you guys for being here again. We did like Josh said, we did a podcast about 3 weeks ago, more on business operating systems in general, how they work. Today, we're going to go a little deeper into EOS. So the question is, this thing we call the Entrepreneurial Operating System, how can you use it to get everything you want from your business? So over the course of this, Josh is going to be doing some poll questions, but we're also going to do a couple of kind of live chat questions. So as kind of a warm up on that, I want to ask a question. You guys can pop it into the chat box. And my question is, where do you wish you were watching this webinar from? I was going to ask, where are you? But I want to hear where you wish you were. So if you can think about that for a minute, if somebody's bold enough to pop that in there, we'll know that's working. Let's see, I got a response or two, I think. Yeah, from Fiji, okay? Josh says Fiji. Anybody else? All right. So whether you typed it in or not, I want you to think about where you'd want to be and kind of transport yourself there mentally, okay? Because I want you to think a little differently today. I want to help you see your business differently, and that is through the lens of an operating system, a system that will help you simplify, focus, run a better business. And that's actually my first goal. You can see your business through the lens of an operating system, EOS in this case. My second goal is to teach you some simple practical tools, some things that you can walk out back to your business today or tomorrow and start implementing tools, again, to get traction, focus, run a better business. So that's my passion. It's helping people like you do that. Every day I'm blessed to work with entrepreneurs and help them on wherever they are on the course of this journey from where they are now to get what they want from their business. And if we're going to start that journey today, we need to get a feel for the destination. So right off the bat here, I have a question. Again, if somebody can be bold enough to put it in the chat box, that would be awesome. But the question is, what do you want from your business? What's the big thing, the big goal? If we looked out 10 years, 15 years, what would be a home run? Before you write that down or get it stuck in your head, I have two criteria. One is make it big. Again, give yourself 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. Secondly is just one thing, the big thing you want from your business. So think about that. Don't overthink it. But think about that, jot it down, pop it in the chat box. I'd love to read off one or two and see what a home run looks like for your business. We got it? All right, we're just getting Josh now. We got to get some others to empower others to achieve greatness, right? So you have some big goal, okay? And again, my goal is to help you reach that big goal. like I say, every day I get to work with entrepreneurs and I love it. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is what you're doing is good. Okay. So just recognize that what you're doing, providing jobs, solving problems in the marketplace, building the economy, that's good stuff. That's an honorable calling. You should be proud of that. The second thing is I've been there. Like Josh said, I've been an EOS implementer since late 2015, but for the prior 19 years, I ran my own businesses and I know what it's like. You know, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's really tough. My wife used to tell me if I didn't relax, my hair was going to turn gray. Okay? And we see how that turned out, not so good. But look, I know what it's like, okay? And I know that sometimes it's frustrating. Now, when I get frustrated, I tend to talk a lot. And so when I was running my business, I used to come home all the time and bring my work home. And I would tell my wife about my frustrations. And one of the things that really frustrated me was my call center. I owned a healthcare business. My call center was not productive enough. One day, my second grade daughter walked up to me and she said, "Daddy, what's productivity?" Because she'd heard me talking about it so much. And I should have given her a second grade answer, but I didn't. I gave her this long, complex answer, and I finished it like this. I said, "Darling, you'd be really proud of me because every day I try to be very productive." Well, I didn't think much else about that till about 3 days later. My wife called me up. She said, "I think we have a problem." I was at the office. She says, "I think we have a problem." I'm like, "Oh no, what?" She said, "Well, your daughter," now just kind of a free lesson here. When they say your daughter, your son, you know it's you that's in trouble, not the kid. She said, "Well, your daughter is telling all her friends and her teachers she wants to be just like her father." I'm like, "Well, that doesn't sound so bad." She said, "Yeah, today she told them all that every day she tries to be very reproductive." Okay, so if y'all are here, y'all be dying with laughter. Okay, I turned my daughter into the second grade tramp. That's not the goal here, okay? So we're not going to talk about reproduction. I do want to talk about productivity, okay? But productivity sounds boring. So let's talk about how do we take all this work you're putting out, because you're already putting it out, funnel it through an operating system and get everything you want. So that's our goal for the next 40, 50 minutes or so. So in my work with entrepreneurs, I see a lot of people, well, not a lot. I see a few that are getting what they want from the business. Their business is growing. They're doing well. They're making money. They got great teams around them. But most of them aren't doing so well. Most of them are frustrated. And we went through these last time, but I want to hit them again because they're important. So what is it that business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders I run into are frustrated about? Okay? And so the first thing they're frustrated by, got a little technical difficulty. There we go. First thing they're frustrated by is control. Okay? A lot of us, when we grow our businesses, we can grow it, but then accounts receivable gets messy, our employees get stressed out, our processes break down. We can't keep control of our business. Our business runs us instead of the other way around. The second thing is profit. Okay? I meet a lot of people that feel like they're running a good business, and I was in this bucket. I was taking care of my employees, taking care of customers, but we weren't making any money. Very frustrating. The third thing, I know this will surprise you, is people. We talked about this last time, right? You tell them what to do, customers, vendors, employees, you hope they'll do it, and they don't. And they're not bad, and you're not bad. There's just not always a fit. It's super frustrating. Now, the fourth thing, and maybe the whole reason we do EOS, is called hitting the ceiling. And what that means is businesses don't grow in a nice linear trajectory. They grow for a while, and then they start to level off. You hit a ceiling. Okay? You're working as hard as ever, but your business isn't growing anymore. And usually complexity is built up, issues are built up, and that system is doing as much as it can, and you've got to change the system. EOS is all about how do we change the system to get to that next level. And then the fifth frustration, the evil twin of hitting the ceiling, is nothing's working. Because as business owners, when we hit the ceiling, we get stuck, we get frantic, and we start trying something new every week. And you become the flavor of the week club. And nobody can stay with you. Your employees can't follow you because things are changing every week. So I see these frustrations, right? And I obsess over it because all these same things I faced when I was running my business. And I think I found the cure. And that's what I want to share with you. And I say the cure, it's a cure. There are other cures out there, but I think I found a fix in EOS. And so that's our goal for the next 50 minutes or so. How do we use EOS to get what you want? What I want to do now is go to the EOS model. When we were talking about business operating systems a few weeks ago, we said every good operating system needs 3 components: a model, this is what it looks like when we're done; a set of tools, this is how we strengthen that model; and a process for applying those tools. We're going to focus a lot on the EOS model today. So let's take a look at this. Imagine your business in the center of this model. And the EOS model is based on this observation, this discovery, this reality that business owners, people like you and me, we got 138 things going through our mind at all times. We can't remember everything to do. We can't make a nice list and knock it all out every day. But the observation in this system is that to the extent we can strengthen just 6 key parts of your organization, those issues will start to fall in place. Because those issues, they're not really problems, they're symptoms. And just like when your head hurts or you got a sniffle or some other symptom, that's not the problem. The problem is something in the core. There's a virus or something that we need to knock out to strengthen so those symptoms go away. And when the symptoms go away, you can do what you want in your life. Same thing with your business. So let's talk about what are these components we want to strengthen with EOS. Now I'm going to walk through them quickly, then we'll talk a little more detail. So here at the top of the model is the vision component. When we talk about vision, we're simply talking about getting everybody on the same page with where we're going and how we're going to get there. No fluffy, fancy words. Let's just get clear. The second component is the people component. We all know we need great people to run a great business. The problem is that seminars and books and a lot of these things give us vague terms like A player and top quartile. We really need to know, how do we identify the right people in the right seats for our business? The third component is the data component. We can't measure everything all the time, but we do need to keep a pulse on the right metrics that tell us if we're doing the right activities to get where we want in the future. Now, when we have a real clear vision, imagine this: everybody knows where we're going because our vision's crystal clear. We have a great team of people that are open and honest, willing to reveal issues, and we have clear data, clear dashboard. We're going to see every place that we're off track. We're going to see a lot of issues because we have clarity in our organization, and great organizations are great at identifying issues and knocking them out. They're like weeds. We got to knock them out or they'll grow up and clog up the whole system. One of the best ways to knock them out or prevent them is with the right level of process. Now, I don't know many entrepreneurs that got into business to document processes, but we do need them. And we're going to talk about how we do that at an entrepreneurial level so we'll get the traction we want. And then finally, speaking of traction, is the traction component. Now, it's no surprise that vision's on top and traction's on bottom, because vision without traction is hallucination. And a lot of businesses are hallucinating. They have a great vision, but no traction, no way to get discipline and execution. And in a sense, we could stop right here. You could put this model up on your wall, and every day, week, month, quarter, you could fire off initiatives to strengthen those components, and you'd get a better business. But I obsess over the details, and I want to help you with the details. So we're going to go in and talk about how do we strengthen each of these. Now, just for the purpose of time, we're going to spend more time on the vision, people, and traction components, but we'll touch on the others. I'm always just a phone call away anytime you want to get any depth, on these. Before I go into each of these components, a couple of things I want to just make you aware of. Okay? First is, in what we're going to talk about, there's not 1 ounce of theory. These business tools have been around for 100 years. They'll be around for 1,000 more. In addition to myself, there's 340 other people in the EOS community, EOS implementers like myself, and we put this system in collectively about 8,900 companies. So it is dialed in. Okay? It works, absolutely works, but it's not cookie cutter. We got to make it fit you. So it's proven. It absolutely works, and it's simple. If you want to be the smartest guy or the smartest lady in the room and always be the one with the answers, this might not be for you. Right? This is about keeping it simple, keeping it focused. It's not easy because there are hard decisions involved, but it's about keeping it simple and strengthening our organization. So with that, let's look at each of these 6 key components, talk about how we strengthen them. We're going to start here with the vision component. Now, again, vision is simply getting everybody on the same page with where we're going and how we're going to get there. General Patton said, a good plan violently executed today is better than the perfect plan executed next week. What do you mean by that? You don't have to have a perfect vision. We just need everybody on the same page. And we start this vision component strengthening by getting the leadership team, those 3 to 7 people that run your business, on the same page with the answer to 8 questions. Remember, we're keeping it simple here. And what are those 8 questions? Number 1 is, what's your core values? Then your core focus, 10-year target, marketing strategy, 3-year picture, 1-year plan, rocks, and issues. We define who we are, what we're about. We get a long-term target, 3-year, 1-year, rocks, issues, bring it all the way down to the ground. Now, when we do EOS, we use this simple tool called a Vision Traction Organizer. And here it is in a PDF format. And we'll walk through it, kind of give you a feel for what we mean by each of these questions. So question number 1 is, what are your core values? Now, we've all heard of core values. And core values have gotten kind of beaten up over the years. And for good reason. Enron had a core value of integrity. We know that a lot of people build core values and they don't use them. But I'm here to tell you the most important thing you can do to clarify and protect your culture is to build a good set of core values. We don't have time to do the exercise now, but a couple places I'll point you to, and maybe there's some way we can put this in notes to follow up. One is the first 5 chapters of Good to Great. It's an old book, but it gives a lot of good overview on how core values work and what makes effective core values. The other is an article called Make Your Values Mean Something by Patrick Lencioni. So you can Google Make Your Values Mean Something, Patrick Lencioni, and it's going to pop up. But those are both good reads to help you start getting focused on what are the small number of things that define who we are and what we're about. After core values, we ask ourselves, what's our core focus? Now, this has been called mission, vision. Stephen Covey calls it the voice. Sorry to give you another consulting term. But our core focus is about what are we passionate about and how do we live that out? Passion, action. When I had my healthcare company, our purpose, cause, or passion was helping people regain control of their health. Most 99% of our clients had diabetes, and diabetes is overwhelming. It makes you feel like you can't control your health. We were passionate about helping people regain control of their health. Now, our niche was diabetes supplies and medication through the mail. Niche isn't really very exciting. The passion's exciting. That's what kept us going. The niche is just being clear about what we do. So when other opportunities come around, we can run them through that filter and make sure that they fit our passion and our niche. 10-year target is exactly what it says. It's the very first question I asked you, and that is, hey, what's that big goal? Now, when we've defined these things, our values, our core focus, our 10-year target, we know who we are, what we're about, then we need to ask ourselves who we're going to serve. And our marketing strategy helps us lay that out. We define our target market, the perfect customer, the center of that bullseye, who we really want to serve, where we have the best close rates, the highest margins, where we're going to make the most money and provide the best service. Then our 3 uniques. What are 3 things that make us special? Don't list 7 uniques. People can't remember them. But if you have 3 things that really set you apart and you repeat them over and over, people will remember them. A proven process, 1-page graphic that says, when you work with us, here's what your experience is going to be. This isn't a detailed process document. This is a way for me to show you, hey, if we engaged in this process, these are the steps I'm going to take you through. Anytime you're providing a service, that helps because it gives some people something they can touch and feel. And then finally, a guarantee. If it doesn't work out, what will I do to make you whole? Guarantees are very important for promoting trial. It's a good way to get people to try you. It's not a good way to build a long-term relationship, but in some businesses, very effective. Now, once we get this higher level kind of thinking work done, again, who are we going to serve, we go to the 3-year picture. In the 3-year picture, you'll see there starts with revenue, profits, and measurables, and then 5 to 15 bullet points that says, what's it going to look like? And I mean, literally, we're painting a word picture here. We're going to have 3 stores. We're going to be in these 3 parts of the city. We're going to have 38 employees. We're going to have 7 trucks. We're going to have these credentials, this kind of training system. we want to give our team a word picture in a fairly short amount of time, right? 3 years isn't forever. It's long enough you can do a lot, but close enough you can get your vision for it. And give people a word picture of this is what our business is going to look like in 3 years. Really get your team excited because they know what all this planning is going to create. And it's a great segue down to this one-year plan. The one-year plan says, what are the most important things we're going to get done this year? 3 to 7 goals. Okay? For all you quick start entrepreneurs, I said 3 to 7, not 37. This is a small number of things that we have to get done. These are things that have a multiplier effect. If we did them, then it's going to create ripples, positive ripples throughout the organization. My first goal ever in EOS was to accumulate a certain amount of cash. And this was enough cash to cover 2 payrolls and 2 drug drafts. So we were selling medications. We had these huge drug drafts. And this was a huge amount of money I wanted in the bank at all times. Now, that was an annual goal. That created ripple effects throughout the business. It changed the type of customer we serve because of margins and the type of products we would be providing. It changed the type of payers, as in insurance companies, we provided for. It changed the way we did AR. It had all these great effects from that one goal. So just think about that. And again, think for a minute here. If there's one thing that could be different about your business at the end of this year, or maybe you want to go 12 months from now, maybe you want to say this time in 2021, what is it? What's that one thing that's driving you crazy or you dream about all the time, but you don't think you can have? You absolutely can get it, but you got to set the goal first. And that's what we're talking about here with the goals. And then we go to rocks. Okay? Now, rocks are the small number of things each quarter that we've got to get done as a business. When we think about rocks, we might be knocking out a big problem. Maybe you have an accounts receivable problem. Maybe you have an equipment maintenance problem. Maybe you have some key employees that are problems. A rock might be aimed at taking those out, or a rock might move a goal down the road. Maybe you set a goal to implement totally new computer systems. And your first rock could be, I'm going to define the requirements and hire the vendor. Doing that this 90 days, and then we move it down the road. And then finally, there's your issues. Issues are all the other things. These are all the things rattling around in my head that I know need to get done, but I've already set my rocks. I don't have room for those issues this quarter. I'm going to park them here, and I'll pick them up next quarter's rock maybe. Unless they're short-term and urgent. If they are, I might need to pull them into our leadership team meeting on a weekly basis, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So that's your vision traction organizer. Again, 2 pages. We're going to force ourselves to get it concise so we can get everybody on the same page. Because we want to get our leadership team on the same page with these, but that's not enough. The second part of the vision component is getting it shared by all. We want everybody in the business to buy into the vision. Your vision is not just for the leadership team. Some of you are thinking, well, my men and women down on the ground serving customers, taking care of equipment, they don't care about the vision. And I will respectfully say you're wrong. They do care. They care where your business is going, and we need to share it with them over and over and over till they get it. And over time, they're going to buy into the vision. Everybody's rowing the same direction, which is great. Or if they don't, they'll probably opt out over time once they realize it's for real. So that's your vision component. Get clear on those 8 questions with your leadership team and then repeat it over and over and over until everybody buys in. You can absolutely do this. You can start tomorrow. The second key component, the second thing we need to strengthen, now that we know where we're going, who's on the team? Again, we don't want the generic stuff. We want to get real clear about right people and right seats. Oh, sorry about that. Right people and right seats for our business. Jim Collins talks a lot about right people, right seats. Let's get the right people on the bus. Let's make sure they're in the right seats. Now, right people simply means they live your values. We're not talking about their capability yet. We're saying, is this somebody I want on my team? A friend of mine says, if I had 100 of these, could I storm hell with water pistols? If the answer is yes, that's the kind of person you want. And we're really just going back to our core values. If they live our values, they're right people. And in the EOS world, we use this tool called a people analyzer. Very powerful tool where we just lay the core values across the top. And those are the EOS worldwide core values. And then we take employees' names down the side, and we ask ourselves for each of these values, Sally in this case, as it relates to being humbly confident, does she live that all the time or 90%? Nobody's perfect. And if so, we'll give her a plus. If 90% of the time she doesn't live it and we can give her examples, we'll give it a minus. And if we're never sure what we're going to get, sometimes she's on, sometimes she's off, we'll give it a plus minus. Now, Sally here, you can see she just lives all her values. She's a star. John does not. And George, you never know what you're going to get. Now, it's never that pure. You never have, sometimes you have somebody that's all pluses. Rarely do you have somebody that's all minuses. Usually you have a combination. What's important is that you set a bar. And if you have 5 core values, I strongly encourage you to set a bar of 3 pluses and 2 plus minuses. And the order doesn't matter. They're just listed straight across. But what you're saying to yourself then is, for somebody to be a fit for my business, they have to live 3 of my core values all the time, and the other 2 at least be a plus minus on. It'd be great if they're all pluses, but 3 pluses and 2 plus minuses is acceptable. A minus is never acceptable, and more than 2 plus minuses is not acceptable. Again, you can do this as soon as you define your core values. Now, if somebody doesn't rise to the bar, right, don't send them a text and tell them to clean out their office today. We're going to start a conversation. But this is the base, and this takes our values from something that's theoretical to something we can apply and surround ourselves with right people. And you have no idea how good it feels when 80, 90, 95% of your people are right people. But that's just half the battle when it comes to performance. The other half is right seats. And we talk right seats, we have to introduce this other tool called an accountability chart. Now, if you've read Traction, the EOS book, you've probably heard of an accountability chart. If you've read the E-Myth Revisited, there's a lot in there about organizational structure. The accountability chart is just a simple structure that says who's accountable for what. The name kind of says it all. And this is just the generic structure. Okay? This probably is not your structure. Now, all EOS companies have an integrator. You need that. You need somebody to manage the day-to-day. But when we look at this line below there, the sales and marketing, the ops and finance, your sales and marketing might be separate. You might have 2 operations units. You might have inside ops and outside ops. Your finance might split into finance, HR, IT. So split it out the right way for your business. But remember, less is more. 3, 5, 6 seats at that leadership team level is all you want. But again, this is the generic structure. And then a lot of businesses, we also have this role called a visionary. And if you work with a visionary, you know it. He or she has 5 ideas a week. 5 ideas a day, 25 a week. 24 of them are bad, but one of them's awesome. And we want them to be thinking. If you're into soccer, it's like shots on goal. You might take 30, you miss 29, but one scores, and you got to take all 30. So we want that visionary to be able to do that, to live that way, but we've got to have the structure underneath him or her so that can happen. And once we build the structure, we're going to take each seat and get clear on what does GWC mean for them. Now imagine this was the sales seat, and we had a name in there. So sales, and Josh Nickel owns sales. We would have at least 5 accountabilities. I should say at least. Let's say 4 to 6 accountabilities here that says, what is he accountable for making happen? Well, he might own what we call LMA, lead, manage, and hold accountable, because he has people reporting to him. He has to manage them. He would probably own the revenue number, probably the sales process, maybe marketing and branding. You can think of 4 or 5 things there that our sales seat or sales and marketing seat would own. And then we're going to ask ourselves, for each of those accountabilities, for that seat in total, does Josh get it? Does he know where he fits in the organization? What's expected? Generally, is he wired to do that? Does he want it? Not can we overpay him or kick him in the rear, but does he want that seat? And does he have the capacity to do it? Is he good at filling that role, making that successful? And then we're going to go back to this people analyzer. We've got the GWC, or the get it, want it capacity across the top. And the bar in this case is 3 yeses. Now, if we pause here for a minute, if you've defined your core values and built your accountability chart, and you take every one of your employees through this people analyzer, you will walk into next year with a different organization. I cannot stress how good it feels to know that everybody is the right people and they're in the right seat. Now, I say everybody. You may never get to 100%. Don't worry if you don't. But again, you get to 80, 90, 95%, and your whole world will change. So that's the people component. Again, we said, hey, let's talk about the vision component, the people component. Now, I want to take a couple of these components a little more quickly, just for the sake of time. The data component is about getting the right metrics that give us a feel of, are we doing the right things today to be successful tomorrow? You have financial reports, you have all kinds of analysis that look backwards and say, how do we do? But the data component is about what activities are we doing today to make us successful in the future. The first discipline here is a scorecard. And a scorecard is just a spreadsheet that has a who column, who owns it, what are we measuring, what's the goal weekly, because we're going to look at weekly, and then 13 weeks at a glance. If this spreadsheet here were bigger, you'd see 13 weeks. And think about things that you might want to measure. You see right here at the top, weekly revenue. That's a good measurable because we want it, but that's pretty rearward looking. Say that properly, Brett. That's looking back. What are some things that tell us about the activities that create revenue? Well, sales calls, that's one we can manage and control, and that's going to make us successful. Sales meetings, how many of those calls turned into what's probably going to be a relationship? That's good. Proposals, closed business. You see there, now we're moving down a funnel of activities that we can manage and control and make happen every week. And if we look at those every week, we'll get the revenue coming out the other end. Great things to measure. You'll see a few other examples here. Okay, we're not going to go through all of them, but we want that scorecard at the leadership team level, and then we want to take measurables throughout the rest of the business. We were looking at the accountability chart a minute ago. Once you get your accountability chart built and you have your scorecard, then you can just walk down that accountability chart and say, okay, here's JoJo. What's the right metric for him to have that contributes towards our overall success? And here's Jane. What's her measurement? Here's Mary. So you get measurables throughout the business, and you have this data-driven organization. Again, and then I'll get off my soapbox, I encourage you, look forward, activity-based metrics that look forward as opposed to a lot of rearward-looking things. If you'll remember early on, we talked about when we have clear vision, clear people, good data, we're going to have a real clear organization, and a lot of issues are going to pop up. Hit these real quickly and read in Traction or just Google this. You'll find some good EOS blogs and some other things about how we manage issues. But the two disciplines are having an issues list. You got to capture those issues so you see trends and patterns over time. And then work a discipline called IDS. And IDS is simply when you get your leadership team together, you have all your issues listed on a wall. You pick the three most important. We're going to do three at a time. And then you identify the first one. What's the root of the issue? Not the symptom. Remember we talked about symptoms and roots earlier? You're going to most likely have the symptom on the wall. You got to drill down and find the root. What's really causing that? A brief discussion and then a solve that's specific. A couple things to think about here. Think big I, little d, middle size S. In other words, spend your time identifying the root of the issue. Go deep on that. Challenge each other. Don't worry about hurting somebody's feelings. Challenge them. Get deep. The discussion should be brief because you've got to the root of the issue and come up with a solve that's very specific, and it will happen in a week or two. We talk about SMART goals a lot. Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time-bound. You've probably heard this before. Come up with SMART solves. So we know in next week's meeting or the week after that, absolutely it was done or not done. Not, oh, well, I didn't know what the goal was and that kind of thing, and then you end up just wasting a lot of time. So that's the issue solving track. Critical stuff. Don't do that. Don't discuss. Now, we were talking about issues. Early on, I said one of the best ways to prevent issues is with the right level of process. And we have a poll question here. I'm really interested in figuring out how you guys feel about process. And I think Josh can flash that up while I keep going through this. Or Josh, if I'm wrong, jump in. There you go. There's your poll question. So if you can think about that, check off your answer. I think we'll get some results here in just a minute. Going once, going twice. All right, Josh, can we show the results now or do we have to wait till later? There we go. So the main things are documented in a brief checklist type manner. 33% of y'all, that's awesome. Said, I've got them documented in this brief checklist type manner is critical. If you make your processes more than a couple pages, you can't enforce them because you can't require somebody to read a 30-page process every time they do something. Now, a lot of you say, I want processes documented, but you never seem to get around to it. Okay? My encouragement is to document your processes in what we call an entrepreneurial manner, 1 to 2 pages each, checklist style. This is what needs to happen, not the deep detail of how to do it. That deep detail can come in training documents, other places. If you want some examples or you want to discuss a process, give me a holler. We'll talk through it. You absolutely can get clear processes and then get them followed by all. Okay? Sometimes I lose control of that when that happens. So here's a list of processes you might document. We're not going to dwell on these, okay? But again, I'm glad to talk to you about them. And then get them followed by all. We have to get them implemented. Train the people that are doing the process. Measure it. If you don't measure it, you can't ever expect it to happen. Make sure they understand that part of their management, part of their success is actually following the process, not only getting the result. And 4, have some way to continuously improve it. Again, 4 things. Train the people that are involved in that process, measure it, make sure that it's part of management. People know that they need to do the process the way we do it at our business and have some way to continuously update it. If you do those 4 things, you'll have a process that really takes root. Moving on to the traction component, right? The last one here. And again, when we talk about traction, we want to get discipline, accountability, execution. The 2 components here are rocks. We talked about rocks earlier. We eventually want everybody in the business to have a goal every 90 days, at least one, a big thing that changes the system. So when we're thinking about rocks, if it's part of somebody's day-to-day job, not really a rock. If you're a salesperson and you have to make 20 sales calls a week, making 260 a quarter is not a rock. On the other hand, if you have to implement a new process or a new system to double your number of sales calls, that's a rock. That changes the system. So think in those terms. Does it change the system? And then get the right meeting pulse, the right activity of meetings. In the US world, we use this thing called a level 10 meeting. And a lot of people heard of the level 10 meeting. Let's go walk through the agenda quickly, and you can, again, Google this or get a lot more detail on it. But when we have a level 10 meeting, we start off 5 minutes of good news, everybody in the team sharing good personal and professional. 5 minutes on our scorecard. Remember we talked about our scorecard earlier? But we're not going detail. We're just going 5 minutes. Let's go down all the metrics. If something's off track, we're going to create an issue. Remember our issues list? We're going to put it on our issues list. We're going to do the same thing with our rocks. Walk through all the rocks we have on our list. Are we on track, off track? If we're on track, pat yourself on the back. If we're off track, we're going to create an issue. People headlines. What's happening with our people? Customers, employees, vendors. What's going on? We got to take care of these people. We need to know how they're doing. And then our to-do list. Last week, we built some to-dos. Remember, I just said a minute, when you work an issue, come up with a smart to-do. We want to come back around here and see if they got done. And so 25 minutes, you've done a quick status check on everything. And then you have 60 minutes to work issues, that IDS. That's what makes this meeting gold. We don't spend a lot of time talking about stuff. We stick to the agenda, and then we have 60 minutes to IDS issues. Identify the root, discuss it briefly, because once you've identified, you don't need to talk a lot, and then solve with a specific to-do. So that's the meeting pulse. That's the weekly meeting that you can run yourself and start getting better traction in your organization. Finally, we're going to wrap it up, rate the meeting, make sure we're clear on our to-dos, make sure we walk out of here crystal clear on what we need to do in the next week. Now, before we move on from this, you should look up at the top and think about, as a leader in your business, if you are hitting your scorecard items, if you're hitting the metrics you need to on the scorecard, that means you're moving up that growth curve at the rate you want to. And you're getting your rocks done. That means that you are doing the things that change the system, maybe change the slope of that curve or make a step change in the curve. And you're taking care of your people, customers, vendors, employees, your team. That's all you need to do. If you're doing those three things, you're good. If you're not doing those three things, they drop in, they create an issue, and we knock them out this week. This is your tool to walk out of each meeting with the confidence that I'm doing the right thing. And when you have that confidence, when you know you're focused on the right things, then you don't get distracted, you keep clear focus, and you move your organization ahead 13 weeks per quarter. Each week I'm making progress. I come to the end of the quarter. How did I do? I got my rocks done. Maybe I didn't get them all done. That's okay. 80% we want to get done. We're going to reset our rocks in 90 days at a time. Okay? 90 days at a time, we're going to get to that big goal you want. And it will absolutely work if you're worth the system. So that's the model. Now that is about what we do in about 24 hours as a leadership team in somewhere around 40 minutes. So I know that's fast, but I think you get the picture. If we can get a crystal clear vision, we know where we're going. The right people in the right seats. Data that tells us, are we tracking the right direction? Good issue solving, so when things do get in our way, we can course correct, get them out of our way. We got processes that make sure that as we grow and scale, our business does not create a bunch of issues, and we've got traction for accountability, discipline, and execution. You really can't lose, okay? As long as you stay the course, focus on the system. EOS is all about how can we apply a proven set of tools and the proven process to make success here as guaranteed is a big word. So I'm not going to guarantee success, but as likely as possible. My experience has been, if we work the system, 93-4% of the time we're successful. Every once in a while something happens, right? We have a pandemic. Something happens in an industry, but most of the time we can execute this with precision, end up with a great result. So that's the model. Now I also said, after we got a view of our business through an operating system, through this model, I want to talk about some tools you can use tomorrow. And so let's talk about the foundational tools of EOS. And we've talked about all these already, but let's talk about them because these are things you can go off and get to work on tomorrow that are going to help you. Number one is that VTO, that Vision Traction Organizer. Excuse me. Start building that with your leadership team. Set a good set of core values. Again, feel free to call me. Glad to help you with that exercise. Build your accountability chart. My personal opinion is that this is the most important tool in the system. People say, oh, I've got all kinds of org charts. Throw out your org chart, build an accountability chart. It's the backbone that everything else hangs on. Start setting some rocks. Set a good 90-day objective. This is what I'm going to get done. Set 1 or 2 for each member of your leadership team. Have a level 10 meeting. Start that discipline. Every week, I'm going to have a level 10 meeting. Now, you might have a scorecard or rocks yet. You can pass by those items, but get to where you're doing IDS. And then build a scorecard. This is my metric. Every week, did I do the right things? So those are 5 foundational tools. So those are really our goals. How do we see the business through an operating system? What are some tools I can work on? Read the book Traction. Again, call me, look at websites. You can absolutely get started on these things. So how can you take action? Real quick, you need a system, right? It doesn't have to be EOS, okay? But you need a system. So find a system you're willing to work and get to work. Start with one tool. EOS is a big comprehensive system, takes a couple years to get everything in place, but that doesn't mean you can't start with one thing. Go ahead and start getting some discipline. And then always this question of, do you need a coach? And only you can answer that. Right? I guess the example I would give is when I was right out of college, I decided I wanted to run a marathon. Now, I've always done some athletic stuff. My buddy Chuck Lotz ran 10K for UNC, and he wanted to qualify for the Olympic trials. Chuck's a lot smarter runner than me, a lot better runner than me. He got a coach, I didn't. Well, it seems like the smart guy doesn't need a coach. No, just the other way around. My goals weren't that big. I didn't have that much potential as a runner. I got a plan at that time off a book because you didn't have the internet, and I ran a marathon. Chuck had such big potential that he needed a coach and a system because his upside was so big. All he needed to do was focus on training and competing. And that coach helped him get the most of his potential. So the answer to do you need a coach isn't, could I do it myself? Yeah, we all could. The answer is, what's your upside? If you have a big upside, you need a coach. Obviously, you need a system. If there's any way I can help you, please call me. Glad to help in any way. My second favorite thing in the world is helping people put EOS in their business. My first favorite thing is helping people put EOS in their business and getting paid for it. I'm willing to do either one. So if number two is your preference, if you want to call me and get some free advice, holler at me anytime.